Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Hope you're ready. Buckle up, lock in, whatever you want to call it. I have so many autumn book recs for you. Whether you're in the mood for fantasy, romance, mystery thriller, dark academia, whatever it is, I've got a book for you. Autumn, fall, we all know this season is so bookish coded. There's only so many weeks, there's only so many months, and there's only so many books we can get through. So I'm here to save you some time. If you want to know the best of the best books for this time of year, then keep watching. I'm also going to talk you through, as well as like all of the books that I recommend for autumn, I'm also going to take you through my autumn TBR, so all of the books that I want to read over the next kind of cozy spooky months. So we're going to do autumn recs first, and then my full TBR after that. Okay, we're going to start with the largest pile of books that I've got, and that is for fantasy. 'Tis the season for fantasy reads. There is something about spring and summer that just like shuts off the fantasy part of my brain. I can't do it, and boy, have I missed it. I have so many good fantasy recs for you that just scream this time of year. So let's get right into it. In my opinion, probably the queen, or one of the queens, of creating a spooky, gothic, very autumnal coded vibe is Kerry Lake. I read Anathema last year and oh, this book is so good. It's about Mavis. She's like a shunned orphan and she's forced to enter the Eating Woods, which is this woods near her village. And it's a well-known fact that anybody that enters the Eating Woods like does not come out alive. Like if you go into the Eating Woods, you die. Mavis is forced into the Eating Woods and she ends up in this magical realm where she ends up meeting this cursed assassin named Zavander. Zavander is tall, he's broody, he's grumpy, he's kind of an asshole, and he ends up protecting her because he needs something from her, but then he ends up getting a little bit obsessed with her. Guys, it is dark, it is spooky, it's a little bit horror, it is slow burn, like true slow burn. If you're looking for like a gothic, dark, fantasy, romantasy, this is the place to start. Next we have The Crimson Moth or The Heartless Hunter if you're on the other side of the pond. If you are looking for a truly chef's kiss, extremely satisfying duology, where you go on an epic adventure, but it's completed in 2 books. The Crimson Moth. I gave The Crimson Moth like 4.5 stars, and I gave the second book in the duology, Rebel Witch, like 5 stars. It was so good. It's about Rune, who leads a bit of a double life. She's a socialite by day and a vigilante known as the Crimson Moth by night, where she's basically trying to save her kind, which are witches, from being persecuted because witches are hunted in the realm that they live. And it's basically a cat and mouse story between Rune, who is a witch, and Gideon, who is a witch hunter. Gideon, the man that you are. This is one of the best cat and mouse, or maybe in fact it is the best like cat and mouse story that I've read. Witch hunter, it is true enemies to lovers. These two hate each other like so deeply, so viscerally, and to watch that kind of slow burn transform from like true hatred to romance is so good. The type of story that you get completely sucked into, and I was like audibly gasping and like sat on the edge of my seat. Such a fun duology. Next we've got a trilogy, the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. Now I feel especially biased. I could not think this is more perfect for this time of year because I read this time last year. Guys, the vibes are immaculate. Another one that's like slightly gothic, very spooky. It's set in Sicily, I think, or it gives off very strong Italian vibes, even though you're in like a kind of a fantasy world. It's about Amelia, who's a young witch. She's living in secret and her twin sister gets brutally murdered. She then goes on a mission to seek revenge for her twin sister and makes a pact with a demon prince named Wrath. Oh, I'm giddy already. There are so many like twists and turns as she's kind of on this like manhunt to find the killer with Wrath, who's this prince from hell who she's kind of like trapped into this pact with her. And the story just gets bigger and bigger as you go through each of the 3 books. And I've talked about this trilogy a few times. It's just so much fun. The first book is almost like, it feels a little bit hard to read. I didn't give it 5 stars because the vibes are so kind of like gothic and spooky, and there's almost like a fog everywhere that sometimes you're like, am I reading reality or am I reading something she's dreaming? It's a little bit disconcerting. And in this trilogy, you discover that there are lots of princes of hell, not just Wrath, and each of those princes rules one of the 7 deadly sins. And then there are books that are follow on after this that are about some of the other demon princes of hell that rule some of the other sins. So you really are diving into like a whole world, a whole universe. There's a lot of other books to get into, but the ones that I would recommend the most are the first 3. It's a great spooky season trilogy, and the second book in this series, well actually, and the third. These 2 books, I can't remember if I gave them 5 stars or not, but the romance gets so good. Next up, we've got an alley rec. If you haven't read Bride, what are you doing? What are you doing? Bride is Ali Hazelwood's first debut into fantasy or romantasy. The story is about Misery, who is a vampire, and she has to enter this marriage of convenience with a werewolf named Lo to try and keep the peace between the werewolves and the vampires. It's a world where there are humans, werewolves, and vampires, and they all try and coexist harmoniously. Of course, that's not really the case, and because of this forced arranged marriage, she ends up living with the werewolves. There's a lot of distrust. Her new husband, Lo, I should have said, he's the alpha of the pack, of course. There's a lot of distrust. He's very broody, he's very grumpy. Forced proximity, slow burn. Oh, it's so good. And the second book in the series, they're like interconnected standalones. So this is like its own individual book, which again, so satisfying to just have one book that's a fantasy. But there is a second book in the interconnected standalone series, Mate, which is coming out in October, which I'm very much looking forward to. If you like Ali Hazelwood, you like the banter, you like the dry sense of humor, it is all in here, but with just a little extra something. Like, I think this is my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. I'd love to reread it, but give it a go. And who doesn't want to read about werewolves and vampires at this time of year? Perfect. Next, we have one of the first books that I gave like a shining 5-6 stars to when I kind of turned into a bit more of a feral reader than I was before. And that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is somewhere that sits perfectly between a cozy fantasy and like a truly epic story. But there is something so wholesome and sweet, and it's beautifully written, and it's just one of those books that I think is almost universally loved. It's really, really special. The story follows Iris, who's a journalist, and her brother has gone off to fight in this war amongst gods, and she's been writing letters to her brother who's off at war, but it turns out that the letters that she's been writing are secretly being received by Roman, who is like her work rival, and the two of them end up writing letters to each other through this like magical typewriter. So it's kind of like a workplace rivals to lovers story, but they're also war correspondence, and like the war is building and the stakes of the world are very high. The war is escalating. It really does feel like a war-torn, like a wartime romance story. It's honestly just beautiful. It is a duology. I didn't love the second book as much as I love the first. The ending of this will have you dying. It is so good. This book is like the definition of large cup of tea, sink into a sofa, light a candle. You're going to be lost for hours. Okay, next we have two of my favorites, okay? One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. Did I hold this the right way around? Yeah, I did. One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, another epic duology. The atmosphere in this, okay, it is literally a world that is consumed by this dark, creepy, evil fog. It's like forests, fog, it's gothic, it's spooky. It follows Elspeth, who literally has a monster living in her mind. Her town is cursed. She also wants this monster out of her head. The monster is called the Nightmare. The magic system in this is so unique. It is not a copy-paste of all of the romantasy that you've read out there. She ends up teaming up with this like mysterious highwayman to collect 12 playing cards. Honestly, the magic system is so cool. People get their kind of magical powers, I guess, from cards. So if you hold a card, you have the powers. And Elspeth and this highwayman end up going on a mission to try and collect all 12 of these playing cards to cure the town, to cure Elspeth. The romance is so good. Again, it's slow burn. You also get multiple points of view in the second book. So the first book is all from Elspeth's point of view, and then the POV is split. And that is so well done. I was obsessed with the new POVs that you get in book 2. Gothic fantasy romance set on a backdrop of a land that is being slowly taken over by this evil deadly mist. Need I say more? Okay, next. Guys, I can barely talk about this book, okay? I finished it yesterday and I'm choking. I am choking on this book. Yesterday I finished Rose in Chains. My first Dramione retelling, if that's what you even call it. Like I said, I am new to the Dramione universe. I've shown this picture so many times, but look at this picture. Okay, compose myself. Rose in Chains. Rose in Chains is about a land that is split into 2 countries, and the 2 countries are at war with each other. The 2 countries are split into magicians, some that get their magic from their minds and the other half that get their magic from their hearts. The story begins with a war, and Bryony, who is like the princess of this story, Bryony's brother, who is the king, has been killed, and Bryony's land is now being taken over and ruled by the Bamadi. I think that's how you pronounce it, Bamadi. So all of the people from her land are basically rounded up and sold at an auction to the Bamadi because The Bamadi are all heart magicians, and they can siphon the magic from the mind magicians, which is Bryony's, what do you call it? Like Bryony's kind. So they end up basically enslaving all of Bryony's people to these very nasty Bamadi elite. Bryony ends up being sold to Tovin, who I can't even say anything bad about Tovin. Tovin is our like Draco in this scenario. So you kind of get multiple timelines where you go back to when they're at school together, and she is trying to, from this very difficult position of being isolated and alone and having had all of her magic stripped and siphoned to her new master, she is trying to reconnect with her people, find out where her friends all ended up getting sold to, and to try and rouse some kind of rebellion. There is a lot of cruelty in this book. There's a lot of discussion about sexual assault and just violence against women in not very pleasant ways. So there's definitely like a little bit of a trigger warning about that. If you are triggered by any of those types of topics, I would just skip this. It's honestly pretty brutal, some of the stuff that you read, but there's a lot of political intrigue. The plot is so high stakes. The romance is so slow burn. I'm literally like grasping at crumbs, but oh my gosh, it was so good. Honestly, I feel in so much pain that the next book isn't out yet, that I'm actually like, it genuinely docks it in my mind as a reason to recommend it to you. If you really struggle with books where the second book isn't out yet, maybe skip this, but I almost want you to suffer with me. So if you could all just go, please read this. We can suffer together. We can discuss it together. If anyone has any remedies for what I'm supposed to do with myself until the second book is out, it's also not out for ages. So, like I said, I'm choking. I loved this, and so good for this time of year. Again, spooky, dark, gothic, pretty, yeah, like this is dark romance. I mean, it's not necessarily dark romance. There is a romance in it, but it's just like a dark setting with some romance, I guess, but addicted. Oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna have time to recover, but I don't have time to recover, because the next book that I'm gonna recommend is Six of Crows. I know you've heard of this. I know you know it. I know you do. For some strange reason, you've been putting it off. The excuses end now. Six of Crows. Do you like heists? Do you like little tiny sprinklings of romance that have you literally gasping for more? Do you like complex magical systems in a world that is really well rounded and considered? Do you like found family? The best found family, you could argue. This is a story about a group of misfits, a group of criminals that all come together to perform a heist on an extremely, extremely difficult place to break into. The relationships between all of the found family members is so good, and it builds slowly throughout the book. The beginning, none of them really like each other, but they've all been brought together in this group to form like the ideal skill set of people to break into this place. That is honestly all you need to know. There are books before this. I think it's the Shadow and Bone. Is it a trilogy, Shadow and Bone? I've never read that. I just went straight to this and I had the best time ever. It was a little bit complex at the beginning to get into, but from what I've heard about Shadow and Bone, I don't think you really need to do that unless you like really want to. Like, this is where it's at. This is the good shit. So good. Like, one of the best books I've read. Like, really good. Guys, it's really good. It's really good. Okay, next we have Spark of the Everflame. This is it's a 4-part series, but we only have 3 parts out so far. This book looks quite small. Don't be deceived. The next 2 are absolutely massive, and Burn is on its way, which is the final book. We've got Spark, Glow, Heat, and then Burn. So if you want to get started on a quite Throne of Glass coded kind of story, like a really long epic fantasy story, this is one of the best I've read since I read Throne of Glass. Gives you the same vibes, gives you the same energy. The story follows Diem, who is like this very poor mortal woman, and she lives in a world where there are mortals and there are descendeds, and the descendeds are the ones that are magical, and she basically discovers a secret about her mother, so ends up being drawn to the magical world, and there's kind of a bit of a civil war going on between the mortal world and the magical world. Kind of a classic. She wants to save her family, she wants to save her mortal people, and the magical land are kind of suppressing and ruling the mortals in not a very kind way. This is one of those books kind of similar to Throne of Glass in the sense that the first book introduces you to some people, but then the whole thing kind of explodes as you enter book 2 and the rest of the series. So my advice would be, if you're going to read this, read book 1, enjoy book 1 for what it is, but it's really laying the foundations for more. So if you're not like completely obsessed from book 1, take a similar Throne of Glass kind of attitude towards it. I had to stop partway through Heat because Heat is massive. It's into 3 parts, and apparently the cliffhanger at the end of Heat is so aggressive. I just knew I literally wasn't going to be able to do it. So I read parts 1 and parts 2 of Heat. I've stopped, and I'm going to read part 3 when Burn comes out. That's how obsessed I am. I physically can't be left on a cliffhanger. I won't be able to cope. Okay, we have more Fae. This is a very classic Fae romantasy story. I know there's a lot of hate at the moment for a lot of romantasy books being the same, churning out the same kind of stuff. You could argue this does fit into that category quite well, but oh, did I love it. Oh, did I love it. You have to listen to the audiobook of this. Kingfisher's voice. I'm dead. Guys, Kingfisher's voice is so good. It's so good. The story is about Sarah Swain, who is a very poor desert thief, and she ends up getting sucked into this Fae realm where she realizes that she can manipulate this substance called Quicksilver. And guys, there's fated mates in here. I love fated mates. I love fated mates. I don't know why it's a trope that does it for me, but it does. Love me a fated mate. This book has it. Fae fantasy adventure. That's really all you need to know. And it's romantasy, guys, okay? It's full on romantasy, and the romance is great. What can I say? There's a bit of jealousy in there. Love me a bit of jealousy. The bit about the cake, if anybody's read it. Ew, that made me so squealy. Next, we've got The Night and the Moth. I'm cheating now. This is illegal for me to include this. I haven't finished it. I've started The Night and the Moth, and all I'm going to say, because I can't fully recommend it because I haven't finished it, but one, I've seen so much good stuff about this. Okay, lots of people's opinions have very similar reviews of books to me. All love this. I gave it 5 stars, kind of loved it. And I have started it, and I can confirm the vibes are immaculate for this time of year. So if you want to read a book that you know the vibes are going to be fantastic, can't comment on the final review. Vibes are so high. I'm also currently reading it right now, so if you read it right now, we'll be reading it together. Very gothic, very spooky. I wonder how many times in one video someone has said those words, like spooky gothic romance, because I've just said it a lot with that pile. Okay, and then my final fantasy recommendation, which, look, I know you've all read it. But just in case you haven't, I feel like I can't honestly complete this video without recommending Throne of Glass. Throne of Glass is the most epic fantasy series adventure that you'll ever go on. So if you haven't been on it yet, your life hasn't begun yet. You will be a different person when you finish this book than who you are right now. The story follows Selena. She is the world's most deadly, notorious assassin, and she ends up getting pulled from prison in order to compete in this trials-based Hunger Games kind of vibe game where she is competing for her freedom and to become the assassin to the king. So she's going to become the king's assassin, and then once she's done that for a bit, she'll get her freedom. So she's pulled out of prison to compete in those trials, and that's really all I can say, because is that the plot of the entire 7-book series? No, but that's the plot of book 1. I'm also just gonna stick my neck out here and say, personally, I think you should read Throne of Glass first. If you don't know anything about this series or anything about the reading order, there is some contention on the best way to do it. This is book 1, and then there is also a prequel called Assassin's Blade, and some people think you should read the prequel first. I personally think you should begin with book 1. It almost then doesn't matter when you read the prequel as long as you read it before book 4, but I fundamentally believe you should read this, and then you should read Crown of Midnight, and then you should read Assassin's Blade, which I believe is the order in which the author intended it, if you have already read at least Throne of Glass. But to be honest, if you've already read Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, I think all of the stories in Assassin's Blade, they hit a little bit different. I think they hit harder. I think you might be a little bit, not lost if you read Assassin's Blade first, but a bit like, oh, these are cool stories. It's like a collection of stories. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Most epic adventure you'll ever go on. If you haven't read it yet, get on with it. If you have read it, guys, don't we miss it? Don't we all miss it? Okay, moving on to the next genre. We are now going to talk about romance. Up first, we've got Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This is one of my favorite books, like ever, 5, 6 stars. I just loved it. It begins at a Halloween party, which is why it's so good for this time of year. But 2 people who have physical disabilities, one of the reasons that I love Hannah Bonham Young so much is that she represents disabled love and disabled joy as like one of the predominant features in all of her books. And this one is between Bo and Win, who both have physical disabilities. They meet at this Halloween party, they sleep together, and Win gets pregnant. The 2 of them decide to keep the baby and to raise the baby together as friends. It is just so wholesome and so wonderful, and it just made me feel so good so good about life and humanity and just all the things. I absolutely loved it. It's perfect. Again, like cup of tea, sink into a sofa kind of a book, and gave me all the feels. Next, guys, if you haven't read the Off-Campus Diaries, if you haven't read The Deal, if you haven't read all the books that come after The Deal, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is ice hockey romance, and who else is watching all of the little tidbits that we're getting of the TV adaptation of this? It's being adapted for TV, and the crumbs we're being fed are so good. You need to read this before it comes out, okay? I'm not going to say much more than it's an ice hockey romance series. It's found family in the best way. It's a group of guys that all live in a house together, and each book follows like a different guy on the ice hockey team that live in this house. Every single one is fantastic. I loved the first one. The Deal, is probably my favorite, and then after that, it's Dean's book, which I believe is called The Score. I binged basically every single book in like 48 hours. I could not stop. Such a fun, like giggly, squealy, kick your feet, spicy ice hockey romance. But all these men are just well, not all of the men are fantastic actually. I have my favorites, but it's so good. It's so fun. Perfect for this time of year. Ice hockey, you can read it in spring, summer. I think I actually did read them in spring, but I think ice hockey, it belongs in autumn, winter, right? It's an autumn, winter sport. Next, The 7-Year Slip. This is also one of my favorite books ever. I mean, all of these books I'm recommending to you, right? But 7-Year Slip is wonderful. Ashley Poston does magical realism so well. In fact, I think she's the queen of magical realism, which basically means they're set in like our normal world, but there's usually a little touch of magic there. So this is set in New York at autumn. I would also, to be honest, I would recommend this book in every single season. I think I did a spring summer book recs video and I recommended it then too, but I think it is actually set in autumn in New York. And it follows Clementine is currently going through grief. She's trying to keep her life together, and she inherits an apartment from her aunt. And when she goes home one day into this apartment, there's a man in it, and the man is like, "This is my apartment," and she's like, this is my apartment. And it turns out that it is also this man's apartment, but he is living in the apartment 7 years in the past. And it's basically a romance where slowly Clementine is falling for this man who lived 7 years ago in her apartment. And it is just wonderful and is so full of magic in the feeling sense of the word as opposed to the literal sense of the word. The literal magic obviously comes from the fact that there's this magical apartment that exists both 7 years ago and in the present, but that is honestly all you need to know for the story. The romance is beautiful and it's lovely and it's wonderful, and read it. Okay, sticking with the sports romance theme because it is the time of year for it. I'm sorry, but it is. If you haven't read the Windy City series, I know I go on about this series so much on my channel, so you probably have already heard me yapping about it, but the Windy City series is a sports romance series. 'Tis the season for winter sports. It largely follows, well, it's actually a pretty even split. We basically follow ice hockey in the first book, basketball in the second book, then we get some baseball, and back to ice hockey. Every single one of these men, they are book husbands, they are not book boyfriends, they are book husbands, they are so down bad for their women. They make you want to move to Chicago and go find these men. Again, I don't really need to say anything more other than sports romance, but the very best kind. Like, this is elite level sports romance. Whereas The Deal is college sports romance, this is the pros, and wonderful, wonderful. If you want to hear me yap about these books more, go watch some of the other vlogs on my channel, but oh, we love the Windy City series. Next, a book that I finished very recently and is so autumn coded. All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This is a small town romance. So slow burn. Again, I've just talked about this book in so much depth in my last couple of videos. I'm not going to say much. Definition of slow burn. A woman moves to a small town to try and rebuild her life after walking away from a very long relationship, and she's also grieving the death of her mother, and she ends up rebuilding her life in this small town and falling in love in the process. It's flawless. It is flawless. Think about hikes in the mountains, and you basically follow the seasons all the way from like summer through to winter, which is when the book ends. Divine. Next. Again, honestly, you could read the Chestnut Spring series during any season, but I think there's something like a little autumnal about cowboys. I don't know, maybe there's not, but to me there is. To me there is. Maybe that's me going crazy. If you want cowboy romance, you know this is the blueprint. Elsie Silver is the blueprint for actually not just cowboy romance, but just contemporary romance. If you want yourself a spicy, swoony book, go read the Chestnut Spring series, guys. It's so good. It's so good. It is spicy and yet so full of like warmth and depth and wholesomeness, and all you want to do is be invited to an Eton family dinner. It follows a group of brothers and each book is a different brother and you just want to be part of the family. All the women are wonderful and they're so like confident and they put these men in their place, and it's just people in the comments hype up the Chestnut Springs series because I don't have the words to do it. Fantastic. And then similar vein, sticking with our cowboys, because I know so many of you have read Chestnut Springs, if you want a different cowboy romance to read, try Alive in Wales by Bailey Hannah. Nothing is as good as this, but this scratches a really similar itch and I really enjoyed it. There are a couple of books out. I have read this one and Seeing Red. I can't remember if there's another one after that. Maybe those are the only two, but I really enjoyed Alive in Wales. A little bit more serious, a little bit more, I don't know what word to use, but these ones are like a very fluffy, fun time. This one is a little bit more, the backstory of the FMC is a bit darker. So there's that to kind of contend with or for her to overcome. These ones are cowboy romances, but like not really, as in they're not really they're not really cowboys at all. This one is more like Yellowstone, like an actual, like these are actual cowboys doing cowboy stuff, and you get more of a look at what it's like to actually be a cowboy, like branding cattle and stuff. This is more like ranchers that own land that just have a fun time, kinda. Okay, that is everything I've now got for fantasy and for romance. And if you guys know me, those are the genres that I mostly read, so that is most of the recs. I've got a few more that span the other categories. Just to run through with you really quickly before we get to my autumn TBR. I want to recommend Nocticadia, which is another one of Kerry Lake's. I didn't know where to put this. I guess it's dark academia, but like dark academia romance. And so could have gone in romance, couldn't go in fantasy, but somehow it gives fantasy vibes, but it's not a fantasy. Nocticadia is about a woman named Lilia who lost her mother to some kind of really spooky illness. She saw this thing like crawling out of her mother's mouth when she died, and she ended up writing this essay about it at university, and the essay gets kind of flagged, and her tutor or someone at her university basically says to her, it's like, what you wrote about is like an actual thing and it's studied at this university, Drucadia. Like you should go there, you should study it. So she ends up going to Drucadia. She enrolls in this university to study the illness that killed her mother, where she ends up meeting the professor that runs the research program on this illness, who is nicknamed Dr. Death. This book is quite horror, I would say. It's horror at the very least. It's very dark and very gothic. Like the parasite, the parasitic organism thing that they're studying is like so creepy and gross. And Dr. Death is, we talk about like morally grey characters all the time. Nuh-uh. This man is black. He is just morally black. The stuff he does is like horrific, and somehow you're still like swooning over this man and Lilia and the relationship. Obviously it's like kind of a forbidden romance because he's her professor and he's also just like does some really bad things, and this is such a, again, I'm gonna say the words again, but it's gothic, it's spooky, it's dark, it's spicy and sexy and steamy. The plot is totally unbelievable and completely ridiculous in a way. That's why I say like it kind of gives fantasy vibes, but it's not fantasy. Take the plot with a pinch of salt. I would almost just tell yourself it's fantasy in a way and then just enjoy it, because to a certain degree towards the end I was like, hang on a minute, we're getting a little bit out of hand here, but it didn't stop me enjoying it. It didn't stop me enjoying it one bit. This is fantastic, and it's a standalone, so it's just like a pretty chunky book that you can just read as a standalone epic story. So much fun. Okay, I put that somewhere between romance and mystery thriller, which is what we're covering next. And this is a short list. So next, I don't actually have the physical copy, but I want to recommend Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This I listened to as an audiobook and I loved it that way. I would really strongly recommend you listen to it in audiobook as well, or immersive read if you like reading the physical copy, have the audiobook going on in your head at the same time. This is a thriller that follows Lucy, who wakes up one day covered in blood, and she the town kind of thinks that she's murdered her best friend. So she leaves, but the story really begins when she ends up coming back to town because there's a podcaster, a true crime podcaster, that is starting to investigate what happened and to investigate the murder of her best friend at the time. It's kind of spooky because Lucy doesn't really know if she did it because she genuinely blacked out and doesn't know. And the town all think that she did it, so they treat her like she did it, but there was no conviction of it, the fact that it was her that did it. And you basically follow this true crime podcaster interviewing different people in the town and interviewing Lucy to try and work out what happened. And if you like a true crime podcast, like this is the book for you, especially the audiobook, because there's actual like podcast music intro for the podcast segments, and it's done, like the voices are all done with different voice actors, so it sounds, it's so good. It's so well done, the audiobook. Highly recommend. I actually don't love true crime because it creeps me out that it actually happened, whereas I actually loved this because I'm not true, I don't want to listen to like true crime, but I'm okay listening to crime because at least then I can pretend that it's like not entirely real. And that was a really good one. Next, we've got a classic, Where the Crawdads Sing. I haven't read this in so long. I mean, I truly read it years ago. Maybe it needs a reread. You may have seen the film, you may have already read it, you may already know what it's about. In case you don't, the story follows Kaya, who is essentially raising herself from, I can't even remember how young she is. She must be like 9, or she's very young, and she's raising herself in the marshes in North Carolina. She's very isolated, very alone, and it's very sad, the conditions in which she's living. And years later, a man is found dead. I think he's like kind of like a local celebrity, but this man is found dead, and Kaya essentially becomes the main suspect. If I remember it right, you are following a dual timeline where you're basically following the murder mystery element of the trial, and you're following like Kaya's youth, where you learnt how she grew up in the marshes. You've got the murder mystery. There's also a bit of thriller like elements to it. The nature and the marshes is extremely atmospheric, and again, very, very perfect for this time of year. It gives, again, that kind of like spooky, I guess actually probably not gothic. I can skip that word this time. Maybe haunting. That's a better word. This one's more like kind of haunting than gothic. It's just one of those books you have to read in your lifetime, so why not get on with it and read it now? Okay, and then on to my final recommendations for mystery thriller. It obviously had to be the Natural series. I just finished reading this series over the summer and it's brilliant. It is like YA Criminal Minds. I think that's what's written on the back, and that is what it is. Again, I've talked about this series so much on my channel, so you can go watch some of my summer vlogs if you want to see me talking about these in depth. But it basically follows a group of teenagers who are put into a house because they are selected for a program that is run by the FBI that focuses on these teenagers with extraordinary abilities solving the FBI's cold cases. Each of these teenagers has a different special skill. One's excellent at reading emotions, one's like a human lie detector, one's incredible at maths and patterns and science, and the other ones are profilers who can understand people's behaviors and what they're going to do next based on only a few small details. We're hunting serial killers throughout each of these books. It is so gripping. I know it's YA, but it's so incredibly gripping. I gave, I think, I just had to change my battery and all of these books just fell over. And I think I was saying, I gave 2 of the books in this series 5 stars. I think it was both of these. Definitely the third one I gave 5 stars to. I know it's YA, but I was on the edge of my, like I was like trying to hide behind the sofa, but I couldn't because it was a book. So I can't like close my eyes and just listen the same way you can with a film or something that you're just like, oh no, I can't watch. One of the best series I've read. I absolutely love these. If you want a mystery thriller series that is YA and it's not like completely like traumatizing, this was so good, so good. Okay, that is all of my autumnal book recs. I know that was a lot to get through, so if you're still with me, thank you. I am now going to very quickly rattle through my personal TBR for autumn if you want to see the books that like I'm really looking forward to reading and that I really want to get to over the next couple of months. I'm not going to go into depth too much about these books because obviously I haven't read them yet, so I can't give you like a full synopsis. And I've been yapping for so long already that it's a miracle if anyone's still watching at this point. So let's rattle through these in case you want to pick up any of the books that I am planning to pick up over the next couple of months. Also, if any of these are in particular your favorite books, then let me know in the comments so that I know to prioritize getting to these ones, because I don't know if I'm actually gonna be able to get to them all. Right, first up, I will be, like, this is top priority. I will be reading this autumn winter. In October, if I don't read this, I don't know, cancel me somehow. I have to read this October. I'm so excited about it. The Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. As far as I understand, it's a serial killer and the primary like detective on the case, and it's like a romance between them. And he thinks he's hunting a killer. Well, he is hunting a killer, and actually it's his like girlfriend that he's hunting. Can't wait. I've only heard amazing things. Next, I've got If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I'm so excited to read this. Shakespeare, gothic, dark academia. Apparently the group of friends that it's about start getting really confused about the difference between the Shakespeare plays that they are studying, the difference between those plays and reality, or like the two things start getting really merged. And obviously a lot of Shakespeare stories are tragedies, so I don't know if there's like murders that happen in this. I don't know, but everybody says it's fantastic and I'm extremely excited to get to it. Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Six of Crows is the only other Leigh Bardugo book that I've read. Can't wait to get to Ninth House. As far as I understand it, it is another like dark academia. I think it's set at Yale, and it follows a girl, I think is her name Alex? Yeah, it follows Alex, who is responsible for looking after or looking into, not sure which, secret societies at Yale. And one of the secret societies, I believe, is like magical. There's like forbidden magic that this secret society tamper with. Oh, they raise the dead and sometimes prey on the living. Creepy, spooky, perfect for this time of year. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I'm scared of this. I know it's going to break my heart in so many ways. I've seen so many people talk about this book. I do feel like I know what it's about, but it follows Addie, who makes a deal, I think, to get out of a marriage she doesn't want to be in. She basically makes a deal, and the consequences of that deal are that she will be forgotten by every single person that she meets. And as far as I understand, it spans a extremely long time. It like spans years, and every single person that she meets forgets her, and it's a story about the people that she meets along the way. And I think there's a romance during this, but everybody says that it breaks their heart, so maybe the romance doesn't end well. I don't know, I haven't read it, but I do want to read this, and it's on everybody's autumnal book recommendations videos, so it must suit this time of year. Then we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, also by V. Schwab. And as far as I understand it, there's a tiny little mention, or you get a little snippet or review of Addie LaRue in this. So I really want to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue first, and then this one. But this one, I believe, is about 3 toxic lesbian vampires. That is the description that I see everywhere. That's the description that I've heard and read. Toxic lesbian vampires, say less. When else are you going to read this? In spring? No. Next, Legendborn. Also sounds quite Ninth House coded. It's about a girl, I believe this is YA, and she ends up joining a secret society called the Legendborn, and they are hunting some kind of monster or something that the main girl believes killed her mother. But again, I think it's like academia, magical attacks, secret societies, that kind of thing. Perfect for this time of year. Then we have An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I want to read this because everybody says this is just a fantastic fantasy adventure, and 'tis the season for fantastic fantasy adventures. And I don't feel like across any of the other books that I've got on my TBR at the moment at all, I've got like a really solid fantasy story. And this one is always so highly recommended. I believe this follows Leia, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and her brother's arrested and she wants to save him. And is it enemies to lovers? I believe it's enemies to lovers, or it's something equivalent to that. I think there is a romance in it, but it's not, I think it is YA, so I don't think it's like a spicy romance or anything like that. Again, I might have that wrong. Tell me if I've got that wrong, but I'm very excited to read this. Final book that I've got on my TBR for autumn. I feel nervous putting this out into the universe. The final book that I've got on my TBR for autumn is Binding 13. Am I gonna do it? Is it time? I think I promised everyone that I was gonna read it now because it's rugby, and rugby is a winter sport. That's why I've been able to avoid it so far this year. I think it's time. I think it's time for me to meet the boys of Tommen. Rugby, sports, romance, definitely not rom-com as far as I can gather. I don't think I've seen a single review of anybody talking about these books where the people reviewing them weren't in floods of tears. Everybody that reads this is crying. Everybody that reviews this says their heart has been broken. Why we bother torturing ourselves like this, I don't know, but I think it's about time I find out. So Binding 13, I've heard that poor Shannon's story is horrific and things that happen to her are awful, and let's just hope Johnny can look after her. I don't know, guys, I don't know. But I think it's time that I read Binding 13, so that is the final one. I kind of feel like it belongs in September. I really feel like it's a September book, which means I need to start it soon because I mean, look how long this thing is. We will see.
Hey guys, it's Editing Ellen here from the future. I've just realised I didn't tell you any of the books on my TBR that I don't have the physical copy of. So I'm not going to go into them because this video is long, but just really, really quickly. Obviously, Mate by Ali Hazelwood, I really want to read. Immortal Dark by, I think, is it Tigest, Girma? Gosh, I'm so sorry. I actually don't know how to pronounce the author's name. Okay, I'm really sorry. I actually don't know how to pronounce the author's name. But Immortal Dark, I've heard such mixed things and I really want to read it. It's basically about a human that gets trapped into a living situation with a vampire in order to save her sister or something along those lines. Everybody says it's like The Cruel Prince meets Ninth House. I really want to read that. Also, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Obviously love The 7 Year Slip, and I feel like The Dead Romantics because it's about ghosts, or I think she either falls in love with a ghost or she's dead, and I don't know, there's ghosts involved. But maybe like a little bit more of a light-hearted romance kind of rom-com thing for this time of year to mix up all of the creepy stuff that we're going to be reading. A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. That has been on my TBR for so long now. So it is about time that I get to that. And that is about a teacher who is asked to come to this school to teach a private class or like a smaller class of young witches magic. And I think there's a romance between that teacher and like one of the other professors that's at the school. But I've heard such lovely things about that. And then I also really want to read Her Soul to Take, which I think is like a demon romance. I think Her Soul to Take is like quite dark. And it seems that on Goodreads, like when you look it up, it's like if you like Lights Out or if you liked God of Malice, which I also haven't read, then you would like Her Soul to Take. So I don't know. It might be a little bit far out my comfort zone, but I think I really want to try it. And then this is actually a plea for me from you of, I think this year I really want to read more werewolf vampire stuff because I've just started a bit of a rewatch of the Vampire Diaries and I'm having the best time. So I want to read more werewolves and vampires. I've already got Mate in there. I've already got Immortal Dark in there. I've already got Bury Our Bones in there, but I could do with some more. So if anyone's got any good werewolf vampire books for me to read, let me know. Okay, let's go back to the other Ellen, who I think is starting to wrap things up.
Okay, that is it. I have talked about so many books. If you're still here, put a little like brown heart or like brown teddy bear emoji you can choose in the comments so I know who like made it all the way to the end of this because whoa, this was long. I hope that has got you pretty well set up for an autumn of good books. Let me know which ones of these you've already read that you like agree with me are really good, or of my TBR ones that you think I need to bump up the priority list. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you are in the middle of a lovely book. It's going to be such a good season of cozy reads and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Bye guys.